Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Tuesdays with Tamika. I am Tamika Walker Kelly, your favorite music teacher and president of the North Carolina Association of Educators. And it is the 6 o'clock hour, and you do not want to miss this episode. So go ahead and share on your platforms. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And I get to have this episode with my very special guest. Let me just go ahead and introduce him. Give me 1 second. Here we go. It's Cal Cunningham. Say hello to the people, Cal.
Tamika, thank you for having me on. Greetings to everybody from whatever platform you're following and watching on.
Oh, thank you so much for being on this episode of Tuesdays with Tamika. Now, I am super excited to have you on today because we get to talk about all things education. And so you have a long affiliation with NCAE and you are a longtime supporter of public education here in North Carolina. So let's get right to the questions. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you feel qualifies you to be the next U.S. Senator from North Carolina?
Well, first of all, Tamika, thank you. Thank the leadership of NCAE. This is an extraordinary organization that I've been proud to be affiliated with through the years because of the amazing work that it does to lift up the value and the power and the voices of educators, catalytic in the lives of our children, so important to the future of our state. And so again, thanks for having me on, and thanks for everybody who's listening and participating. So I was raised in a family of public educators. My Aunt Sis, my Aunt Gay, my Aunt Scotty, my grandmother taught at Forsyth Tech. When I was blessed to serve in the state Senate, served on higher education, K-12 policy, appropriations, oversight, really focusing on the state's role in investing in education. But before we get to that, look, I was taught to read at a very early age by my Aunt Sis. She was a elementary school teacher at Pickett in Lexington. And I must have been a little talkative at a young age because she taught me that a good listener is a good learner. You know, that's what you tell a young person to kind of get them to sit and pay a little attention, you know. And so throughout life, whether it's been serving in the military, which I volunteered after September 11th and went to Iraq and served in Afghanistan, whether it was growing up in that town of Lexington and, you know, working in the family business or learning the value of service in church and youth group and doing mission work, whether it was being a student leader at Chapel Hill, later serving in the legislature, as I mentioned, or even building the environmental company I was proud to help grow and lead. I frankly I've come to believe that listening is actually the foundation of leadership, that we have to be active listeners with each other. That's one of the most important ways in which we build bridges with each other, that we find common cause. It all starts with Aunt Sis sitting on her knee, learning to read at an early age. But I'm deeply imbued with a sense of service, a desire to do for others. It's sort of similar to what our educators are drawn into your profession with. It's a sense that each day we have the opportunity, by giving to others, to have meaning in our own lives, but also to really shape the next generation and do right for the next generation. And that, you know, we're being challenged as a country right now. Yeah. Senator Thom Tillis has really not served us in the way that we need. He has caved into those corporate and partisan interests up in Washington. He has not been there for North Carolinians like we needed him to be. And so I'm asking to go to Washington to focus on public education, to invest in this profession, help build it and lift it up, help work to make sure that our children have the resources they need, that you have the resources you need to deliver what we all need the next generation to have. That's about raising pay, improving benefits, investing in early childhood and higher education. So Tamika, that's a little bit about what brings me into this moment, a little bit about my background, and again, grateful for the chance to have this conversation.
Not a problem. And shout out to the educators, right, that have been influential in your life, that brought you to this moment. Because everybody can point to at least one educator who has made a difference in their lives. And a lot of people recognize that as somebody in their own family. So thank you for sharing that story. I am going to ask you, so when we talk about federal races and how it impacts educators, not a lot of people understand, the role of how a U.S. senator can impact educators and education. So can you share a little bit about how your role as our next U.S. senator would impact educators?
Well, first, it starts with the next Secretary of Education will be nominated and sent to the United States Senate. Now, I have a personal belief about who should be the next president. And when that next president is sworn in January 21st, we will hopefully be able to turn the page on Betsy DeVos and the administration that she has had at the U.S. Department of Education. There was an important piece in the Brookings Institute's morning briefings this morning about the ways in which this administration has done a lot to undermine public education, particularly by backing off of the commitment to civil rights and equal rights, a commitment to equity, and particularly the systemic challenges that some of our schools face in delivering resources to our young people. So it starts with who we approve to be leaders at the U.S. Department of Education. But then the next piece of it is this: almost $1 out of $10 that is spent on public education in America is a federal dollar. A lot of that money comes through the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. A lot of that money comes through Title I and other grant programs that can be used to help catalyze and invest in innovation. And so as a senator, we will be reauthorizing federal legislation that helps set a benchmark for standards. We'll be approving new personnel, and we should be, if we're doing the right thing, putting resources in the hands of our educators right here in North Carolina so they have what they need, you have what you need to succeed.
Well, and thank you for breaking that down. We talk a lot about how federal funds are important to our Title I programs, because we know we have lots of schools across the state who qualify under Title I. You talked a little bit about IDEA, which we know still hasn't been adequately funded at the federal level for our students with exceptional needs. And you talked about educators' least favorite person, Betsy DeVos, aka Dolores Umbridge. A shout out to my Harry Potter fans, but they know, right, that this person is hugely unqualified to be Secretary of Education, and how our senators take a role in making sure that we appoint someone who has the perspective and the experience to make sure that we are looking out for education across the United States. So thank you for pointing that out. So I do want to ask you this question, because it is a hot topic at the moment, and that is the Senate is busy at the moment with the confirmation hearing of Trump's latest Supreme Court appointment, Amy Barrett. And we know that the Supreme Court is critical to a lot of things, for rights for educators, to collective bargain, Janus, educators know about Janus, things like that. So what is your position on Ms. Barrett and the controversy around her confirmation?
Well, I think the first most important thing to think about is that North Carolinians are telling me and telling us, they're raising their voices and saying they want to be heard in this process. North Carolinians are already voting. I haven't looked at the data in the last couple of days, but we have almost 500,000 votes already at the boards of elections to be counted. As I have made it very, very clear, North Carolinians deserve the opportunity to have that voice heard. It is, quite frankly, the same position that Tom Tillis took 4 years ago when he objected to a confirmation hearing actually at an earlier time during the process of electing a new president. So I've made it clear that the next president should take this matter up. The next Senate should take this up. And it's in no small part because, as you know, Tamika, this is a lifetime appointment to the highest court in the land. And when the Supreme Court rules, that is the law of the land. And so when they are asked to rule on important issues of rights, important issues of workplace bargaining, when they are asked to rule on issues of discrimination, the law as they establish it becomes the law of the land. Very consequential role, and it is for life. And so, look, one of the other things that I think is of concern in this moment is, what does this say about the priorities in the United States Senate? Tamika, you joined me and a couple of others on a press call on Friday to talk about the need for COVID relief, and particularly to highlight, and by the way, wonderful job. You and Brian have both been really terrific champions and strong voices at a time when our educators need federal assistance. And as we talked about, look, local governments, our city councils and our mayors need help right now. Our families are a paycheck away from not being able to make the rent payment. Unemployment assistance has run out at the level that it should be. We need to be helping support some small businesses that, again, need loans to keep going. But if we think about how we bridge the gap from where we sit today to a world where we defeat COVID, the federal government has to be a leader. The federal government has to put the resources in the hands of our educators, whether it's for laptops and high-speed broadband connectivity and routers or personal protective equipment, all the additional things that are necessary in order to deliver education in this moment. And so rather than do that, we are rushing through a partisan exercise to put somebody on a court for life. We should be, as a nation, focused on COVID relief. And this is just another example of how Senator Tillis has caved in. If it's a choice between his partisan interests and serving the people of North Carolina, the people of North Carolina got to look out, because he's going to toe the party line. And he put out a press release, Tamika, 15 hours after Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. 15 hours after Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, saying that whomever the president would send over to the Senate, that he would call for an immediate vote and he would approve them sight unseen, no questions as to that person's qualifications. That's not a check and balance for the people of our state. That's writing a blank check to the president for the people of our state.
Thank you for highlighting that. Yeah, so first, shout out, rest in peace, RBG, whose legacy cannot be replaced. And then you pointed out, how important this particular moment is, because it's unprecedented. We've never moved as fast during a confirmation ever in the history of the United States politics. And of course, it just, again, points out how Tom Flip-Flop Tillis continues to not serve the interests of the North Carolina people. But then you also pointed out, just like we talked about before, when these people could be getting together to talk about COVID relief packages, making sure that we have adequate PPE in schools and funding for school districts and different needs, they're doing this instead. So unfortunately, having to point that out as a thing that's happening. But I appreciate you for doing that. Okay, so here's
Can I make one more point before we move on? This isn't the only time that we have gotten to see how Tom Tillis prioritizes his time in office. When he was speaker, and this is something that brought thousands of educators into the streets across North Carolina for, frankly, a recurring number of times over the last decade, when he had a choice as speaker to invest in education. Instead, he cut hundreds of millions of dollars out of our public education year after year. I think 3 consecutive years, if I'm not mistaken, over $500 million. And one of the reasons that's significant is because, the West Ed report is looking at school funding now the governor's office, the courts are looking at our funding, and they can show opportunity gaps opening up, funding disparities opening up, educators leaving the profession in much larger numbers. And all of it goes back to that moment. Why did he cut education? It was to free up money to cut taxes for corporations. Once again, the wrong priorities for the future of our state and for our children.
Now, when Tom Tillis was speaker, he got caught on a hot mic trying to target NCAE, and lots of longtime NCAE members know about that. And then, of course, like you said, we are kids over corporations over here, and those cuts under his leadership have been disastrous, and we haven't really recovered from those cuts at all. And we're trying to make sure that this election is the one where we start being on the road to repair. Because like you said, you mentioned the Leandro case. It's been 20 plus years, and we still haven't met those requirements that have been outlined in the Leandro case. So, and shout out to our coalition partners at Every Child NC who are doing great work around the Leandro case, and making sure that we get those recommendations put in place for every student to have a high quality public education. So I have two important questions. Okay, so one of them is one that people will just really, really want to know about. So there's been a bit of controversy lately over some remarks that you've made about barbecue. And so I want to give you the opportunity, Cal, right here to set the record straight. As the next U.S. Senator from North Carolina, do you consider hot dogs and hamburgers barbecue?
No. Look, and let me also be very, very clear that in North Carolina, barbecue is a noun, never a verb. Barbecue is not an action. Barbecue is a thing that you put in your mouth. And it is, I'm a proud native of Lexington. I've been eating barbecue in Lexington since as young as I can remember. Right there in the center of town, sometimes going on out into the county. One of the great joys of campaigning, actually, take away coronavirus, is being able to travel across our state to come down to Cumberland County. In fact, I was just down in Hope County this weekend, and to the west, where we're proud of Lexington and Western style, to come east to enjoy the barbecue in the east. And so, look, we have some good fun on the campaign, and sometimes good fun goes awry. I will always be a very proud ambassador for North Carolina barbecue of all different types. I'll always, though, know my place, which is Lexington.
Okay. So we're team Eastern barbecue over here with a nice vinegar-based barbecue. So I'm just gonna say, Lexington barbecue is fine, but we're team Eastern barbecue over here. Okay, so the people wanted to know, Cal. I had to ask.
And I think, let's see, is tomorrow the 14th, because Clyde Cooper's Barbecue here in Raleigh is going to reopen for the first time since the shutdown order in March. 11 a.m. Be in line.
Oh man. Okay. So y'all hear that? Okay. Shout out to Clyde Cooper's Barbecue, because that's I mean, you might get some really good. You're gonna get some really good barbecue there. Okay. So last question. As you know, we are so close to election day, and let me just tell the people out there, hey people, the election is over on November 3rd. It doesn't start on November 3rd. People in North Carolina have already voted. Thousands of them, thousands, probably more than that, have already voted by mail already. And early voting has started in different places across the United States, but it starts here on the 15th. So I have one question for you, Cal, and it's probably the most important one, really. We are 2 days away from early voting beginning. So what is your voting plan? Are you going to vote in person on election day, or are you going to early vote, or did you vote by mail?
I plan to be there when early vote opens. In all likelihood, the Tally Center on NC State's campus near my home. And it's the place where I was very proud to walk into that early vote site back in February with my now 18-year-old daughter. And when she cast her first ballot, look, every North Carolinian needs a plan to vote. I know so many people who have requested absentee ballots. That is a great way to participate in the election safely from home, from your workplace. That is probably the safest way to do it. But we also should know the Board of Elections has deployed a historic number of early vote sites. One early vote site for every 20,000 registered voters in every community. And that's to accommodate the social distancing, the additional time that may be necessary, the additional personal protective equipment that's necessary in order to vote. The most important thing is that we have confidence in our elections, that we all make a plan to participate in our elections, that we get our friends, we get our neighbors, we talk to those in our circle of influence, those perhaps through our schools, and make sure that everybody knows that their vote matters. What Representative John Lewis described as the almost sacred vote. And with that ballot in your hand, you have the same influence on the outcome as a person who may today live at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the very president of the United States. And with that vote, you have more power than a corporation. They may be spending unlimited amounts of money in these elections, and that's a campaign finance, a whole issue of how we reform and heal our democracy. But with that vote, you have more power than a corporation. So we know what the stakes are. Tamika, I know that NCAE members know what the stakes are. Educators know that they have a choice in this election. They have a choice between someone with a record of investing in public education. They have a choice of a person in Tom Tillis who has repeatedly disrespected the profession, cut funding for education, who after taking tens of thousands of dollars from the DeVos family, of course, voted to put her in charge of the Department of Education. So we're going to have to come together as a state. We're going to have to lift our voices. We're going to have to work hard to make sure that everybody recognizes and appreciates what we're up against. I'm confident when North Carolinians go into that voting booth, we're going to vote for change, and I'd be honored to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And I think you're like the third guest I've had who is taking their 18-year-olds to vote. And that's really exciting because to all the young people out there, you can make a huge difference in this election. So we need you to go out and vote. So if you need a voting buddy, just let me know. Hit us up on the NCAA page. We can get you a voting buddy. And I'm so glad to hear that you are going to early vote. Now it is your turn to our audience here that are watching. What is your voting plan? We have put in the chat already a link to all information you need to early vote. And Cal, I know you're going to NC State. Shout out to all of the people who are voting on the campus of East Carolina University. Go Pirates! Okay, so whatever route you choose, we want you all to know of your choices to cast your vote and use your voice in this election. So if you already requested an absentee ballot to vote by mail, please make sure that you follow all of the steps so that your ballot doesn't get spoiled. And if you need help on doing that, you can go back a couple episodes and listen to Secretary of State NCAE endorsed candidate Elaine Marshall break down the absentee voting process for you. You can go early vote with your mask and bring your own pen, or you can vote on election day with a mask and your own pen. And if you want to know of all of the pro-public endorsed candidates, such as Cal Cunningham, you can visit NCAEvotes2020.org to see the full complete list. And Apple cards are on the ground. And so you want to make sure to see to make sure people get the Apple cards so that people can see them. And I will tell you, Cal Cunningham, I think you made an appearance in one of our NEA Today magazines, and that was pretty cool as well because you are our NEA endorsed candidate as well. So we are super excited to make sure that you get into the federal government as the representative from North Carolina. So we're excited about that. People, if you make sure that you tune in next Tuesday, because we have another special guest, a very important edition of Tuesdays with Tamika. I want to thank Cal Cunningham for his time today coming on with us, and thank you all as well. Keep an eye out for the information because it's really, really important that you tune in next Tuesday. And I will see you soon. So have a great evening. Cal, you want to say bye to the people?
I really do. Thank you, Tamika, for your leadership. Thank Brian for this great team that is elevating the voices of educators. But thanks especially to all of those whose passion it is to change the lives of the people of our state, the young people of our state. This is how we transform and grow and make sure that the next generation has everything that it needs. As a senator for North Carolina, I'll see it as my job always to bring resources to you so that you have what you need to succeed. You let me know. It's a partnership. It's one that I'll be listening about. It's one that I'm grateful for your help and support in. Onward to success. And then let's do what we should for the people of our state. Thank you, Tamika.
Thank you, Cal. Thank you for watching, and we will see y'all next Tuesday. Bye.